What's up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of A Brit and a Yank Talk Business. I'm Stuart Amadon, and with me is,
Tom Chaldicott.
and we're here to blow your mind about how to build businesses in the world today. Actually, not really. We're still trying to figure out how to get started.
I mean, these conversations are helpful for me to understand how we're going to build businesses. So,
Yeah, so it works out well. It works out well. Yeah, I find that I think that this kind of got birthed out of you and I just had weekly touch points because we work together.
mm,
And those conversations were so edifying for me. I was like, we really should record these.
yes.
We really should have these things out there for someone else to kind of, I think, benefit from. Because, like we talked about before, we want to educate, we want to motivate, we want to network with people. So we want to throw this out on the internet and see who else out
Mm,
there thinks like us or is willing to at least entertain the idea of
yeah.
building a Christian business world network,
Mm,
whatever you want to call it. And then we can move forward and fulfill Jesus's mandate. Take dominion, expand the kingdom. Let's do this thing. I think it's going to be a valuable tool for people for years to come. But this is only episode 3. And Tom, what are we talking about today? Episode 3.
yeah. So last week you were interviewing me about Knox Thomas, my business. And today we're going to find out what page 50 is.
Oh,
I mean, I
I'm
think the
still trying to
first,
figure that out.
we'll try, well, it's going to be a short podcast then, Stuart. Um, we jump in.
Yeah, man, let's go.
I think the first
So,
one, you go.
so page 50, here's my elevator speech, right? This is my elevator pitch. Page 50 is a full service marketing and media production company. We serve all verticals and we solve people's problems. That's the gist of what we do. Um, and marketing and media is so obtuse. Whenever you say that to people, it just about always invites more questions. What does that mean? What do you mean you do marketing? And if I was to push it all the way down into the granular level, it would be to say, we help your business be more visible. That's kind of what we do. We help build your top of funnel really, really well so that you can worry about sales and conversions, and we can worry about marketing. We can
Mm,
worry about getting you in front of as many people as we possibly can. And the Lord has blessed, and over the last decade that we've been in business, we've had good success.
yep. I mean, let's ground that a little bit more because it's still a little abstract. What do you do for Knox Thomas? What do you do for my business?
So Knox Thomas, my favorite client. Don't tell anybody else that. So Knox Thomas, we do um, a lot of digital discoverability. So that means that we take content pieces that you guys produce, whether they're blogs or video pods, similar to this one or other things, and we convert them into digital discovery magnets. So in other words, we put them on your website, um, advise you about pushing them out and getting them published in other places for the purpose of increasing your digital footprint. And with the things that we put on your website are highly discoverable, that we give you tools for social media kits that you can throw these bits and pieces out on the internet to increase your discoverability. And I'm pleased to say it works. It's a simple methodology. Basically, we're trying to get you the most value possible out of the things that you make. And I find that in the digital space, especially, it's so incredibly technical that you do need somebody to come along next to you and say, "Hey, let me take this and calibrate it for you so you're getting the most horsepower out of it as possible," which is, functionally what we do.
Yeah.
And we've set similar systems up with other clients, and it's very effective, very successful
Mm,
methods. What we do is not complicated, really. It's the technical side that's complicated. The fundamentals of it, anybody can do. Start a
mm,
podcast, write blogs, put posts on social media. The difference between when we take it is we take that piece and we optimize it to reach the largest audience possible to get them top of funnel and then start moving them down.
yeah. I mean, one of the other things that when we first met, you were talking about was kind of this coaching piece. So
Mm.
being an entrepreneur, I'm happy to throw as much spaghetti as I can at the wall. But if
Yeah.
someone can kind of tell me that, Tom, you're actually throwing it at the wrong wall or in the wrong direction, and you don't need to throw that
Yeah.
much spaghetti, you can throw half. Like that's
Yeah.
really valuable.
Yeah.
So your feedback, certainly to me, being like, Tom, do this more, refine that. This is good. Don't bother with this, has
Yeah.
been has been really valuable. And yeah, we genuinely, and I'm not saying this just for an audience, is that we wouldn't be where we are today if you hadn't helped us out and given us that steering, that guidance, and done the work on the website and the blogs and the rest of it. So yeah,
Well,
totally worth it.
I appreciate that. I'm glad. It's good for me to know. My mission personally is to help people build what the Lord has given them. Like I want to be faithful and fruitful, and I want to help other people be faithful and fruitful. And so that's very encouraging to know that that has worked. Especially, I mean, Page 50 will work with anybody, provided that you're not trying to communicate evil into the world. But I especially love working with Christians because that gets my that gets my heart going a little bit. Like, okay, now we're not just building something that's going to make some people a little bit of money that they're going to spend on something foolish. I'm
Mhm.
helping to build the actual kingdom of Christ. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Like we can work that through. We just had a an opportunity to run a campaign for somebody, and their initial campaign costs were going to be, I mean, something astronomical, like $30,000 or $40,000. And so we came in and assessed the situation that they were dealing with and saying, well, why are you spending that much money when 70% of the people in your target audience are never actually going to buy your product? So in other words, we were able to kind of help them refine their target audience down to help them save, oh man, I don't know, something ridiculous. Like I think 80% of their budget or something is now saved because it's actually pointed at the people who might buy, who's actually their target audience. Like that's just, and that's kind of the things that I like to help people think through. Like, why are you trying to communicate to this entire community right now? Not all of them even remotely need what you're offering. We gotta think about the ones who it's actually applicable to, which just audience defining can be so financially beneficial for companies because so many folks do that too with their advertising campaigns is they're just like you said earlier, they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, and there's massive opportunity cost, especially for entrepreneurs, because they're just boom, boom, boom. They're using all their time and trying to see what sticks. But if you just have a little bit of strategy attached to it, you
Mm.
can be far, far more effective from what we've seen.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be quite exciting kind of having that business where you sit because when you're kind of engaging with other Christian businesses, because you're the mechanism by which they scale and they kind of, their kind of blessing factor. I don't know how that's probably terrible language, but like multiplications on that because of kind of stuff that you offer it. Yeah,
Yeah.
highly valuable and a real blessing. So
Well,
I think the next question that I have, and if you were to go on your website, you'd be able to get the answer to this just as quickly. But why the name?
yeah, I get that one all the time. Yeah. So, why the name Page 50? You can go to page50.com to read the answer. But so when we first started our business, okay, let me actually go all the way back because this involves storytelling for why we exist at all. When we started because my kids were hungry and I was a church planner, and church planners don't make money. That's just, that's just how it works. We had two
How many
kids.
years back? How many years back is this?
Oh, this is a decade, I think, by this point. This is the other part of the problem is I don't know when exactly my business actually started. Is it when I started doing the work and getting paid for it, or was it when we formed an LLC? Like, at what point do we count?
I think
Like
being paid is that's a
that
good
that counts
definition of a
enough.
business.
Yeah.
So let's go with that.
So this is probably a decade, 12 years ago, something like that. We had two kids. My wife, we have a classical Christian school attached to our church. My wife was teaching full time, and we were making the bills, comfortably for probably the first time in, I don't know, another decade. So we were very excited about that. And then my wife came home and she told me that she was pregnant again. Now that was a big deal because at the time we thought that that was dangerous for her. So there was all kinds of extra anxieties that were tossed on. Turned out it wasn't dangerous at all. We were just poorly advised by the doctors. She was actually fit as a fiddle and fine. But Anyway, she said she was pregnant. We knew, and we've always known, that we wanted her to be home with the kids. That was our big, big checkbox. And we were willing to sacrifice whatever we had to sacrifice in order to do it. And so I told her, I still remember this. We were in the parsonage, and she told me that was going down. And I said, I don't know how we're going to pay for it, but we're going to figure it out. And you're staying home again. And so she did. And we were dead broke, man. Like, I remember, I mean, grinding like crazy. I'd get checks for $90 from going to do an event or something like that. And I was so excited. I was like, look, babe, we can buy milk. Like it's happening. I remember the first client we ever signed was somebody who paid me $150 a month. And we did, web edits and video production and all their social media posts and all like I gave them the moon for $150 a month. But I was so excited. Like I was like, we have work. It's working. Then it got to the point where we established an actual business. I was filing for an LLC. Okay, well, we need a name.
Mm.
And the first name was MCA Studio because at the time we had three kids. It was my oldest daughter, Marie, my second born, Cindy, and my son, Abel, MCA. And I was like, okay, great, MCA Studio, because in my mind, having a business has always been oriented towards our family, towards our household. We're serving people out there, but ultimately the business exists within the household sphere. And so that's always been my primary orientation. Well, um, we had our third child, and her name is Rosa. Or sorry, fourth child. Her name is Rosa, and it was like, well, we can't change the name of the business every time I have a kid, so we have to figure this thing out. And so we just kind of went back to the drawing board and trying to figure out something that would be uh, a little bit more timeless, I guess you could say. And at the time, it was a thing where people would do bucket lists. You know what a bucket list is? Like
Mhm.
when I'm dead, I want to have done these things. And so it was kind of trendy then. And so I kind of took that opportunity to sit down and think for a little while and just be like, well, I don't really care to write down what I want to do before I'm dead, but I do care about what I want to leave behind. Um, and so I made a little list. It wasn't really complicated. It was like two or three things on the list. And those three things were I want to leave something to my children. I want to raise children, basically, in the fear and admonition of the Lord. I want to pass my faith on to them, and I want to make disciple makers. Okay, so children who love and follow Jesus, something to leave them, and make disciple makers. Those are my three things. And I wrote those three things on page 50 of my journal, and I was like, oh, here we go. And
Mhm.
so that's been our name, and that's been our focus, really. And I was writing down people in the corporate world. I hate corporate lingo, but people in the corporate world would say, "Oh, you wrote down your core values," and I'm like, "Yeah, I guess,
Yep.
whatever that is." But yeah, that's it. That was it, and we rolled from there. And those three things have always been the rudder.
Mhm.
This is what we're trying to do. This is the goal. And so we make decisions and calls that other businesses wouldn't necessarily make or do, and that's fine because our rudder is a little bit different.
Yep. And what does that look like today then? So you've got those three core values in the day to day running of your business. How do you engage with those? How do you kind of put those out in front of the people that you work with? You've got employees. I mean, well, first of all, how big are you today? What are we talking about when we talk about page 50?
So we're officially bringing on our fourth full-time in-house employee, and I am actually very excited. So for a long time, when you're starting a business, you can't really pay people very well. Like you can't pay yourself well, you can't pay them well. Like you're just like, sorry guys, I apologize. I'm really sorry for how small this check is. I hope you guys enjoy life. But really, within the last 2 years, the Lord has blessed and grown the business to where now um, I don't feel bad when I pay someone. Like I'm like, this is a good wage. Here you
Yeah.
go. And so I have four, as of June 1st, I'm going to have four full-time employees inside of the staff. Outside of that, I have about 15 um, part-time contractors that, or just part-time employees, kind of depending on how you want to look at it. But I'm categorizing W-2 and 1099, and it works out really well. A lot of our part-time employees are stay-at-home moms who just want to hustle a little bit of extra grocery money, or stuff to buy things for the kids or whatever. And so we employ a decent amount of those. And then a lot of them are contractors from all over the country that think like us, want to build like us, and align with the values that we've kind of laid out in our organization.
Yeah. So in there, you've kind of, your vision, or part of your vision was so that your wife could, we were just talking before this, could be the COO of your house,
Yeah.
which is kind of helpful language and totally true. So your wife's the COO of the house. So what's the engagement with your kids in the business then?
So my children are relatively young, except for my 15-year-old and my 12-year-old. And so right now, I'm just beginning to really work my 15-year-old into the actual work of the business. She's got some tasks that she receives from our SEO manager every couple of weeks or so, and she walks through those tasks. So I do like to brag on her because she's a 15-year-old and she's SEO SEMrush certified. Like that's kind of a big deal right there. And she's I told her the other day, I was like, honey, I don't even have that. Like I don't even have that certification. But here you are at 15 and you've got these things. And I'm very proud of her. But before that point, our office has just always operated to where we know that people are going to bring their kids. And so I'd bring my kids to work all the time, and they would just go play and hang out and run around and be with the employees and talk to them and chatty chat. And it was wonderful, honestly. So we've always kind of had them in and around the business, but I'm just now getting to push into them working within the institution, learning some trades, learning some skills. My 12-year-old, I sat down with both of my older two because I was like, I think it's time for you guys to start developing a few skills just in case. Um, and I asked him, I was like, hey, Marie, which is my oldest, I said, would you envision yourself working on a computer more, or would you envision yourself working with like a camera more? What do you think you'd like? She was like, I think I would prefer to just be like doing work on a computer. And I was like, okay, cool. And so leaned her into the SEO side, the computer side of things. Asked the same question to my 12-year-old, and she's like, I think I'd be more interested in like creating things like with a camera. I said, okay, great. We got her a camera, and so she carries it around with her and takes pictures and practices. And if they just hone those skills a little bit, they'll have opportunity to just lean in and really be able to have an astonishing skill set by the time they're 20.
Mm,
Like something. And the advantage for them, and I was talking to my daughters about this, I was like, girls, the skills that you're learning here you can literally do from anywhere in the world. You can do while you feed the babies. If your household needs a tiny bit more income, you have an opportunity to push a button and be able to earn that. And that's a huge benefit for you. Maybe they'll never need it. That'd be great if they didn't.
mm,
But if they do, they have skills. And at this point, they're going to have far more skills than I have.
yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting one. Like how, it's kind of off tangent a little bit, but it's popped into my mind. How do you equip your children to be the roles that they're going to be when they're older? So, like, I'm very much blessed by my wife because she studied accountancy, and I mean, without that, I'm not sure if I would have got the business off the ground. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do in that space. So how do we equip? Our sons, it's probably a bit more straightforward. They could take on the business potentially, but
Hmm.
our daughters, how do we almost equip them so that they can uh, be a help to their husbands?
Hmm.
What sort of skill set? And I mean, like if they've got some sort of marketing background and understanding, there's something of substance there that they could, depending, bless their husband with. So
Yeah, absolutely. And they
yeah.
could help further the mission of their one day household by coming to the table with tangential skills from the jump. So my wife, for example, is an educator. and she inherited those skills. Sure, she went to college for education, but you and I both know that a college education on education is hot trash. All right, but you know what she was? She was trained by her mother, who
Mm.
was probably, and who still is, honestly, probably one of the most phenomenal educators that South Louisiana has never heard of.
Okay.
It's one of those kind of situations. But her mom taught her how to work with little kids from the time whenever she was little. And therefore, guess what? She has a phenomenal skill set that outpaces the previous generation. And
Mm.
she's at home educating my children.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like what what kind of better world could that possibly be?
Yeah.
I have an in-home classical Christian school model if we need to tap it. Like that's phenomenal. And she's killing it. She's ridiculously gifted. But yeah, it's exactly what you're talking about. What skills and values and vision can we get inside the hearts of our children so that when they hit the ground running, they can run faster than us.
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've been around, you can't really decide when you started, but let's say 10 years. What, what, what has been the biggest surprise in those 10 years in the way that the business has been a blessing to your household? What was the thing that was like, these are the things that I expected, but this thing happened? What's the, yeah, what's the biggest way it's blessed your household that you weren't expecting?
Probably. So when we first started, um, I was happy to just offset the expenses of the house and the bills and to help pay for the things that we were dealing with. Like that was I was very happy with that. The first surprise was whenever we were able to start hiring employees, and then things really started taking off quickly. That was, oh, I didn't see that coming. I just thought this was side hustle Stewart until I was 70 and dead. I thought I would be, I think the contemporary expression is a solopreneur. I thought that was going to be me forever.
Mhm.
But then there was this day where we hired an employee, and I thought, oh, we might actually have something here. Like this might actually be legitimate. That was my first moment. My second moment was whenever we were in was the first time we went to FLF. Oh no, sorry, it was the second time actually. We went to Fight Laugh Feast conference. I think it was in Tennessee that year or Kentucky. I can't remember. Um, and I made some connections with um, people who would eventually become very close friends, and they helped us network into a national space. And that was like, what has happened?
Mhm.
Like it got to the point where we started doing work for Gabe Wrench and the Cross Politic guys. It got to the point where we were now working contracts in other states all over the country and, now all over the world. Hello, Knox Thomas. Um, and now, like my month of June is sending me and several of our employees to New York State for a project and to Los Angeles for a project. And I'm looking around like, what is happening? What is happening? The Lord is doing something incredibly profound.
Mm.
It's just, and I didn't see, I never would have seen this coming. I never would have thought, ah, yes, in 10 years we'll be an international brand that serves people all over the world. Like that was not, that was never the point. The point was always my kids got to eat, and man, it would be cool to leave them something
Yeah.
super cool. And the Lord has just blessed and turned this thing into a machine
Mm.
of what I would say pressed down, running over blessings, not just for our family, but I have 10 other families connected to the institution through employment, and now it's a blessing to them too. Like it really is mind-boggling for me to think through those. So I would say, what was the moment? I'd say, well, there's two, and it's those two.
Yeah. Nice. And you mentioned kind of values at the beginning. Obviously, page 50 is very overtly, if you can understand the name, written or ingrained into a set of values. Have they? have they developed over time? Have they kind of changed into potentially changed direction at all, or have they just become like, I don't know, an engraving in a slate that has just become deeper and deeper and deeper? What's happened over those 10 years? Because we're only 2 years old, so
Yeah.
what's your experience?
So developing those core values, like just about everything else that's happened with our company, was an accident. It was not Stuart sat down and said, "Yes, let me think through my core values." Like that wasn't a thing at all. It was just, what do I want to? You can look at the page in my notebook that we wrote it down as. The header on the page is "When I'm dead, dot dot dot." Like this is what I want to leave behind. That was the whole point of the page. I was just thinking about things like that, which is how my head works. Um, but I would say the longer that I'm doing this, the more that specific thing matters to me. And so one of the things, you and I have been talking about this a lot lately, is the development of goals, objectives, and key results. And so we read Matt Reynolds' book, Undoing Urgency, which is very helpful to me. Matt's a friend. He's been super kind to me and taking phone calls whenever I just need to, bounce some ideas off of people or try to figure out why I'm in a slump and get unstuck. He's been very kind. And so his book has been incredibly helpful to me to be able to say, okay, this is who we are, but what do I do with it? Right? What are the specific things that I should now change and apply? And so I'd say within the last 10 years, especially within the last year or so, I've been able to take those specific objectives, right, the specific core values, and convert them to particular goals and things that I need to do. So, for example, I want to make disciple makers. Well, the Page 50 office has always been an area of disciple making, because I mean, you put Christians in a room together, and what are they going to do? They're going to edify and admonish and exhort one another and encourage one another, and like boom, discipleship's happening. But one of the things that I've started doing lately with it is being a little bit more formal, and saying, hey, what are you trying to do with your life? Like, do you have goals? Where are you headed? Where do you want to be when you're 40? And which, I have 20-year-olds that work for me. I have 30-year-olds who work for me. So it matters to ask those kinds of questions to them. And then we help them develop lists of, their goals, what they're trying to accomplish, and we provide a degree of accountability. So that's, one easy, one easy moment, one easy result. Um, it also helps me deal aggressively with financial goals. So if I want to leave an inheritance for my children, that means I have to have an inheritance to leave them, right? And so I'm developing some what I would call very, very aggressive financial goals. And from those aggressive financial goals, I have specific key goals inside of the business that I'm trying to meet and exceed, as we continue to go through things. I hired a project manager to get that aspect of the business completely off of my plate so that I can focus on top of funnel and sales development. And and it's been really, really cool to see that happen over the last year or so. So yeah, the longer that I'm doing this, the more those things work down into the granular. I almost think like if I would have tried to do this 10 years ago, I would have screwed it up. Like I would have made some stupid mistake in my objectives or measurables or things like that. But now I think the Lord has given me the time and the opportunity and the space to be able to try to develop them more and more and more. So I do think they're important. Um, I do think core values are important. I do think the most core values that I read aren't great. Like they're not written very well. They haven't thought through what they're really trying to accomplish. Um, and they feel more like objectives than they feel like this is who I am. So you want to be careful whenever you're laying those things out. But if you can get them down and they are distinctly Christian, meaning they resonate with the Bible and the mission that God has already given us. Because that's really the question you're asking, right? You're saying, how specifically is my mission going to exist within the broader mission of Christ? Um, and so figure those pieces out and then build. And I think that's a better priority for us to run through.
Yeah. I think my last question, and we've kind of discussed this sort of stuff before. I was thinking about things that I don't know, potentially I would have wanted to hear, or if you're just starting out a business, or you've even got a business going. What are the things that you have done? I'm thinking kind of in line with scripture, and kind of that the world would just be like, why on earth are you doing that? And I think there's two of them. What are the two kind of things that you've gone? Scripture says this, therefore we are going to do this, and it has kind of seemingly ballooned in blessing your business.
Yeah, okay. Can I give you three? Is that
Sure.
okay? Okay. So the first one is we keep the Lord's Day. Um, and we draw a hard line there. Now there have, admittedly, there have been times when I've screwed that up because I didn't ask appropriate questions about a particular project before it was started, and then boom, we wind up working on the Lord's Day. It's like, man, I hate this. This is not what we meant to do. This is a problem. All those different kinds of things. But um, if you if you work 6 days, you really look forward to the seventh. Like there's a holy anticipation in it, and you get to rest at such a far deeper level um, than I believe uh, people who don't practice that actually get to. The secularists would say, well, we get a 2 day weekend, sometimes 2.5 or 3 day weekend. Like we're really getting to rest. And my retort to them is, no, you're not. You don't work.
Mm.
And so what that means is on all your rest days, you are actually working, maybe in smaller amounts, but you're still working. You're doing, oh, I gotta take care of this. I gotta do a few emails here. I gotta take this meeting. Oh, I gotta, you don't actually get to rest. I turn everything off on the Lord's Day. I shut it down. We even have in our communication standards within the business, hey, our comms, we believe in the Lord's Day, therefore our internal comms should be mostly silent whenever it's between, and we set our time between sunset on Saturday and sunset on Sunday. That's when we, formally observe the Lord's Day as a company. Um, and because of that, I think that we're actually tapping into the way that the world is designed to work, that humans are designed to work. Cam Newton points this out in his book, Deep Work. Excuse me. He says that if you don't turn it off, then you never actually rest and you're not fresh the next day. Now, his point in saying that is he's like, hey, you have to turn off the work side of your brain at a certain time and not engage anymore until another certain time of the next day and then get back in to do your deep work. And I agree with that principle. I've practiced it. I think he's right on. On the days when I used to run 16-hour top to bottom days all day and answering emails in my bed at 9:30 at night, I did never turn off, so I was never fresh. I think the same principle applies to your weekly rhythm. If you don't turn it off, then you're never actually resting. You're always doing that. Well, I got a few things to take care of. I got a few more things to do. So the first thing I would say we did was keep the Lord's Day, and the Lord blesses that tremendously. The next thing I would say is tithe. We made a commitment to tithe um, out of our income plainly, and that sounds so simple, doesn't it? It really does. Give your 10%. But I'm just absolutely convinced that the Lord has blessed our business because we just said, you know what, we're going to tithe and we're going to keep the Lord's Day. And that's all
And
I really know how to do right now. So that's what we're going to do.
a detail on tithing then is that, and when you say income, are you talking household income? Are you talking business income? At what point are you talking tithing?
Yeah. So I'm talking about uh, money that comes in to the business and the Amazons plus a little. Okay. So now it gets very complicated because you have to say, well, what do you tithe on? You tithe on your increase, right? Not every dollar that just channels through, because that's actually how you're going to get in a lot of trouble really quickly, and you're going to overextend yourself. Ask me how I know the answer to that. I needed some counseling on that early on because I just was like, yeah, 10%. And so I was writing these enormous 10% checks out of every dollar that came through the business for a little while. Then a friend of mine who was a pastor, he was like, it's on the increase, right? And I said, oh, yeah, I got it. I got it. I got it. So I learned that, and I, began developing and practicing that more and more. And so the way that we do it is we have, the money that goes to our house. We have the money that goes to specifically our family, and then we do a little more, do a little extra past that. That's the way that we practice it particularly, but we do a tenth of those numbers. It's honestly probably more like somewhere between 15 and 18, I would say, if I was trying to think through what the actual numbers would be inside of us, inside of what's coming into our family, but it's something along those lines.
And then what was your third item? Then you decided to increase two to three. So
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So be willing to get fired, um, and be okay with it.
mm,
Uh, being in the marketing business, it's a little, I'm promoting things. That's my job. My job is to promote businesses, to promote things that they do, and to help them be louder about it. Um, but what that means is that sometimes you have to look at a client and say, I can't do that. I can do anything else you want me to do, but I can't do that.
mm,
And that means that you have to be willing to take a pay cut. Like you've got to be able to say, I don't do that and take my money. That's okay. So one of the stories that I tell about this is we got hired by a subsidiary for the Louisiana Department of Health, probably, I don't know, 8 years ago, 7 years ago by this point. And it was going to be this enormous contract. It was the largest contract we had ever worked on up to that point. They were going to pay us so much money. I just remember thinking, wow, we've made it. So they hired us to run their socials and to help them with their marketing and promotional strategies and different things. And so, we're working for them for a month or so, a couple of months. Things are going well. And then it became June, Pride Month. And they said, hey, it's Pride Month. Here's the stuff that we would like to promote this month. And I was like, oh, got it. And I went and talked to some of my employees at the time, and we're thinking through things like, what are we going to do? How do we think through this well? And at the end of all our conversations, I was like, we're gonna have to tell them we can't do this. We don't have any other options here. If we're gonna be faithful Christians, we got to just call them and say we can't do it. So I called them, and I said, hey, I said exactly what I just told you at the beginning of this. Hey, I'll help you do anything else you want to do, but we can't do Pride Month stuff. We're Christians. We believe the
mm,
Bible. We can't put that. We can't help you promote that. And it was a funny conversation because the guy that I talked to, he was like, "Oh, well, I'm on vacation right now, so I can't really help you, but I'll call you back in a couple of weeks." And I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And sure enough, they called us back in a couple of weeks. They were actually very cordial about it. They were like, "Hey, look, we respect your values and who you are." And I'm pretty sure that the guy that was on the other end of the phone was a practicing homosexual. And so I appreciated that he was like, hey, we respect who you are, but we can't work, we can't work with you guys because we want to promote these things. And I was like, hey, you know what? No harm, no foul. We're done here. Thanks for the business. See you later.
mhm,
Um, and then what was really cool, okay, so I was terrified because like this is the biggest contract we've ever had. I can't believe we just lost this. What are we going to do? And then I went and checked the books. This is at the time when I was still managing all the financial aspects of our business, which was also a bad idea. But I don't anymore. Um, I went and checked the books, and I was like, oh, we actually never invoiced them, and we also actually never counted their income in our operating budget in the first place.
mhm,
So I was building our operating budgets as though that income was never present. And so, in other words, they fired us and we never felt it. And then
mm,
I realized they owed us like, I don't know, $10,000, something crazy. And so I wrote them this huge invoice and I sent it to them. I was like, I wonder if they'll pay it. You know? And then they did. So
mhm,
functionally, according like on the bookkeeping side of things, it was like we got a $10,000 bonus that none of us saw coming. Like, in other words, this trial turned out to be so much more of a blessing for us than we thought it would have been. It was very, very cool. So, yeah, so thing number three, just be willing to be fired.
mm.
And trust the Lord with it. And if you're faithful, he'll bless. Go read the Psalms, man. The Psalms over and over again talking about the Lord's blessing on the faithful, on those who keep the commands of God. Amen. So just hold on to that and do what he says and trust him, and
Mm.
you're going to be able to see those blessings manifest. I've seen them. It's happened, like it's not a joke. It's real. It's actually real. If you stay faithful to what God says, he will bless you. It's not hyperbolic. It's actually true, and it has manifested itself in our lives. The whole reason I would quantify any of our success is just because of God's grace and him keeping his promises.
Yeah.
That's all of it. All of it. So yeah, there's your three things right there. Tithe, keep the Lord's day, and be willing to get fired.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to round up our podcast.
Amen. Thank you. Guys,
Amen.
thank y'all so much for listening to another episode of A Brit and a Yank Talk Business. If you've got questions, or if you have, thoughts, or you want to follow up with some of the things that we're talking about, feel free to reach out to us. You can email me directly at stuart@page50.com, STUART at page50, PAGEFIFTY.com, and we'll see if we can't work some of your questions or thoughts into future pods. Thank you all again so much for listening, and we will see y'all next time.